So I want to take a second and address some questions that I've been getting after doing that blueberry video where my wife and kids and me went out and planted that new row of blueberries. A lot of people have been asking me, what kind of fertilizer are you using and what kind of soil do you have, and is it acidic, or what's the deal here, Mike? And I didn't really go into detail on those kinds of things when it came to that blueberry patch, but I probably should have. So to be real straightforward and blunt as possible, I don't use anything out there. So here's the deal. Out in the orchard where we've got all of our fruit trees or any kind of edible plants, as well as the vegetable garden, we do not fertilize. We just don't. We never have. We don't use any kind of artificial or chemical fertilizers at all. If you've been following this channel for a while, then you've probably seen some of the videos I did from I think 3 and 4 years ago, maybe even 5 years ago, where I created that whole orchard. And what we did was we first put down 6 inches of cow manure over the whole area. I used my dump truck and I hauled it from a local dairy. And then we went and put 6 inches of wood chips over top of all of that. So all of that grass you see around those blueberries and those apple trees is all growing in wood chips and cow manure that has rotted down over time. All of that is what feeds those plants out there. We do nothing else. The only other addition that we do is that grass clippings that we put down around those rows of plants. Now, how does that tie into the type of soil that we have going on out there? And that's where it gets really interesting for me. If you guys haven't read this book yet, you really need to consider getting it. It's called Teeming with Microbes. And I read it probably 12 or 15 years ago, and it opened my eyes to what's going on beneath that soil level. And what is going on is way more than you might imagine. And also what is going on will do everything that you need to have happen to grow the plants that you want to grow without any application from you except for maybe just mulching. So there's obviously 2 types of soils, well, maybe 3, that you could have in your garden or your orchard setting. And they're acidic soils or alkaline soils, and maybe you could throw in neutral soil at 7 pH. So typically you'll hear, and this will vary based on the types of plants that you're growing, but typically vegetable gardens where they grow in one season, produce the crops, the vegetables, and then you can them and all that, and then they die back through the winter. Those types of soils are going to be more alkaline, and you can see evidence of that by tilling. Many people, including all the way back to, hundreds of years, probably thousands of years, people who plant vegetable crops that they're going to harvest that season, they cut down trees. They remove the brush and the shrubs and the bushes, and they till the land. Or, before tillers, they plowed the land. And I know there's a whole lot of different gardening methods beyond that, where you start getting into hugelkultur and Paul Gauchi's method, where he just layers the surface, and all that's well and good, but throughout history you'll see that people who are growing vegetables will first prepare the land, and what that does is it makes that soil more basic, or another word for it is just alkaline, and it takes some of that acidity out of the soil. How does it do that? Well, it kills all the fungi in the soil. So bacterial dominated soils will tend to be more alkaline. Fungally dominated soils will tend to be more acidic. To get more bacterial dominated soils, you've got to rough up the land and remove all the brush and trees and ground cover and all that. To get the fungally dominated soils, you've got to layer over time, and you'll see that out in a woodland setting. So trees and bushes, shrubs, anything that is going to grow over time and start building up a forest is going to have fungally dominated soils. And the reason is all that detritus and the pine needles and the fir needles and the leaves and the bark and the wood chips and branches and things that fall on the soil level, they are all carbon rich and they're broken down by fungus. And you'll see little mushrooms and things like that growing out in the woods. You don't always see a lot of different types of fungi growing out in a pasture that's been tilled year after year. There are some that will grow out there, but they're growing on carbon matter. So what you want in your orchard is fungally dominated soils, because these are trees and they're shrubs and they're plants that are going to grow year after year for decades and produce food that way. So you want those fungally dominated soils. How do you do that? You layer, and that's all we do in there is we layer. We layer with first manure, then wood chips. That was our base, and then we come back and we do grass clippings. If I had access to leaves, I do leaves over top of all that. Leaves would be even better because it's carbon. It would break down more slowly and attract more fungi. And so you're looking for the fungally dominated soils that will be more acidic and will help those trees and shrubs and longer lived plants to grow healthier and more solid over time. So once again, I know I'm going to repeat myself, but to answer your question, what do I fertilize with? There's no secret. I just layer. I would say, go out and find whatever you can find in your area, whether it be chicken manure, cow manure, horse manure, and some of that will be bacterially dominated in the beginning, but what it will do is it will mix with the carbon material that you put on, like leaves and wood chips and branches and things like that, where it's all carbon. It will help to break that down quicker in the beginning, and then just layer with leaves or layer with grass clippings. And grass clippings tend to be a little bit higher in nitrogen, but eventually over time, if you get enough organic material in there, it will start becoming more fungally dominated, and the soils will become more acidic over time and will create healthier trees and shrubs for you. So there you have it. That's what I fertilize with in the orchard out there. Just layered material over time, and it gets better year after year. So I hope that answers your guys' question. I hope you like this one. If you did, hit the like button, subscribe if you want to follow along. Have a fantastic week, and I'll see you in the next video. Adios. So hold on just one second here. I was editing that video, and I thought, you know what? This question is going to come up as well. I know the original question was about the orchard out there and how do I fertilize those plants, but I'm sure there are people that are curious, how do I fertilize my vegetable garden? And there's basically two parts to this. The main one is with my chickens. And so if you guys haven't seen those, I've done some videos on those in the past. I'll do more in the future, but we have found the very best, most magical way to take care of your vegetable garden, at least for us here, is with chickens. And every fall and winter we let our chickens onto the garden area. They eat all the weeds, all the weed seeds. They basically till everything down to dirt again, and then they fertilize for that entire period of time. We add nothing else to it, and we get the most beautiful plants coming up that are just rich and produce a ton of vegetables. So something to definitely consider if you guys haven't done that or seen that. Check it out. Also, the other thing that we do, and this one kind of can turn some people off, but it's absolutely true, and that is urine. So I've got several videos about this. There was a really cool experiment I did with zucchini plants on using urine in the garden as a fertilizer. It's not as gross as it sounds. It's actually just very nitrogen-rich solution. So anyway, we can get into that more in another video if you want, but in the meantime, if you haven't seen them, go check out that series of videos about the urine in the garden and the experiment that I did with the zucchini plants. I think that pretty much sums it all up. I think I answered all the questions I could have answered about what I do out here for my fertilization. That pretty much covers the vegetable garden and all of the orchard area. So I hope you guys enjoyed this one. If you did, you know what to do. I already said that. And subscribe and do all that other stuff. And we'll see you in the next video. Adios.